Good morning, everyone. It's an exciting opportunity to be joining you here for this exciting webinar. We're going to have some very great information to aid organizations as they think about their legal ramifications of the business, putting documents together as they move forward. We're fortunate today to have with us Quinncey McNeal from Husch Blackwell. He's a pro bono counsel. Let me just, by way of just before I pass it over to him, is that we've started this partnership. I'm Lorne Steedley, again, Vice President for Diversity and Inclusive Growth for the Chattanooga Area Chamber of Commerce. And about a year or so ago, we began to partner with Husch Blackwell, largely because we recognized there was an extreme need for legal counsel and this back office support. And in that context, we reached out to Husch Blackwell or vice versa, and they were available to aid organizations who were seeking that type of assistance. So we're very pleased this morning to bring in Quinncey and listen very closely to some of this very timely information as we go forward with economic development and business progression. So with that, Quinncey, I turn it over to you. Good morning.
Oh, Lorne, what a joy, what a pleasure, what an honor to be here today and to speak with these entrepreneurs at the Chattanooga Chamber about what they are doing and about trying to accomplish entrepreneurism and their businesses and building their businesses. It's really a joy to speak. As you mentioned, I'm pro bono counsel at Husch Blackwell. I focus my attention each and every day on trying to help support our minority businesses, watching them grow, watching them develop. We have a program specifically, we call it Communities for Change at Husch Blackwell, where we take in and support minority-owned businesses. They apply to our program, and certain eligible minority-owned businesses, we partner with them by forming an attorney-client relationship with them, and we help them as much as we can be their legal eyes in whatever development, whatever stage they're in. We help them be their legal eyes and help them with documentation, help them with their contracts, help them with their with whatever legal need they might have at the time. And our hope is that in doing that, we can see them grow and develop, and in so doing, help our communities by offering jobs, by taking in independent contractors, by expanding their worker base in such a way that creates what we like to call the ripple effect. So we speak with minority businesses all the time, and when we're not representing them, we are consulting with them. We're speaking with them as a sounding board about their business, how it's developing. So to make a long story short, each and every day we work very closely with minority-owned businesses and small businesses, not simply minority-owned businesses, but also small businesses. Husch Blackwell, much of a startup, a law firm that prides itself on being there for startup businesses, for small businesses, as we're well aware that small businesses, startup businesses, minority-owned businesses largely are the engine of our economy. And I have to tell you, for most of my life, I've been an employee. And being an employer or being an entrepreneur, I find just to be so courageous. It's such a bold thing to do. It's a difficult thing when the buck stops with you, right? As many of you who have joined us today have learned or are learning, the buck stops with you as the entrepreneur, as the one who's over the shop, as the one who minds everything going on, and there's a lot of responsibility there. We understand that. We appreciate what you've gone through, and we just salute you for it. So listen, today I'd like to talk with you about I'd like to talk specifically with you about the startup phase and of small businesses, and talk to you also about why legal is important, but also not just why legal is important, but also why other teammates will be important to you, right? Why other people will be important to be in place as your business moves from one level to the next, right? So we're going to talk about the legal aspect of things and why a legal set of eyes is important, but I'm also going to share with you what I believe to be the perfect team, right? There's nothing that's really perfect per se, but the people that you want to have in place as you are going from one stage in your business to another stage in your business, the people who can provide you technical assistance, technical support, certain kind of know-how, and candid information and candid advice, right? Because that's what you need as your business begins to build, as your business begins to grow. So we're going to talk about all of the different characters that need to be that you need to think about putting in place. At the end of this, I'll ask Lorne and Darren, who I'm so grateful to be in this partnership with, so grateful to be working with, because their hearts are so in the right place here and trying to help our businesses. But I'll ask you, Lorne and Darren, whether or not you feel like there are additional individuals who you believe should be in this list. But I think it's important. And before we get started, I want to make sure that you understand what I'm saying, and I'll stress this as the day goes along. I'm not suggesting you're going to see some people here, and you may see some folks who traditionally we understand need to be paid for their services. And so traditionally, you might think of this and think, well, goodness, I'm a small business. That may be a good bit of money that I'm not willing to pay, right? Completely understand that. Of course, that is a natural fear, a natural concern. What I am talking about, though, is not necessarily engaging these folks in a formal sense and paying them for their services as you are beginning. That's great if you're in a position to do that. I would think that you'd want to think through precisely what you need before you begin to do that. But what I'm really talking about is not so much that. I'm talking about taking these folks out to lunch. I'm talking about getting to know someone who has an expertise in this area. I'm talking about befriending these individuals who are in these different areas that I'm going to share with you. They're so important to a business as it begins to grow and develop. So we're not talking about going out right now and beginning to engage these folks and paying for their service. That's not necessarily what I'm talking about. What I'm really talking about is leveraging organizations that you're a part of, like the Chamber of Commerce, like an urban league, like another association that may not be as nationally well known, but may do a lot of great things for the city of Chattanooga or wherever you happen to be. I'm talking about being a part of those associations in a way where you are networking and getting to know the individuals who will be so critical and so important for your business as it begins to grow. So let's begin. I'm going to share my screen, which is always a bit of a challenge. So please bear with me as I go about that. I'm going to share this and we will begin the presentation. Let's see here. Just a moment. You all talk amongst yourselves while I do this. So tell me if you are you able to see this screen? And I have a feeling this is the wrong screen. So give me just a moment. Lauren, did I share the wrong screen?
Yes, you showed to share the wrong screen.
Gotcha. This is a screen I think that shows you a bunch of things. Let me see here. So we're going to stop the share, come right back. We'll do this one more time. I've given you guys enough time to get your notes ready, get your pencils and papers ready as we get prepared. So let's share this screen. Okay, and
that's it.
Okay, good deal. So let's start from the beginning. All right, and now are you able to see? Now the whole team's here. Can you all see this screen?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, good deal. So listen, let's start this talking about the team and putting the team in place. There is a phrase that I like from a song that was popular not too many years ago. And there was an important lyric in there, I think, that's also appropriate for today. Now the whole team's here. The lyric begins, the song really is about a group of people who started from the bottom, quite frankly, and they rose to a certain place, right? And that line there, I think, is so important. Now the whole team's here. So when we start talking about rising up and going to another level in your business, it's important to think about the team of people that you put in place. And that's really what I want to focus in on today, with a specific focus on the legal team. So here is what we have ahead this morning, so long as you can continue to see the screen. I want to talk to you about what team or teams are important to put in place. I want to talk to you about who the teammates are. Who are the folks that you want to be thinking about as you begin to build this business? Here's a question for you. Why? Why is this important, right? Why is it important to put these teammates in place? Why is it important to have a lawyer in place? as you begin to build. And what would a team offer you? And finally, will you lose control, right? All of these are important things to think about because there is some measure of a loss of control when you put teammates in place. And not just that, when you put teammates in place and then you specifically and intentionally rely upon them, right? You've got to let go of some of the control. The vetting process takes place in the very beginning. You've chosen an individual, you put them through a rigorous process to vet them, and now they're in place. Now you have to trust your vetting process and let them do their thing so that you can do your thing. I will tell you that in working with small businesses, which we do a great deal of, and in working with minority businesses, which I do a great deal of, one of the things that we see, which is fatal to these businesses, is that the CEO is doing far too much. And oftentimes they will poke their chest out about all that they're doing. I am the CEO, I am the COO, I am the marketer, I am the lawyer. And it gives them a sense of pride to talk about all of the different bases they have covered. The truth is, that's not a good thing. That's not a way to scale. That's not a way to grow. That is a way to grow tired. That's a way to grow fatigued. And that's a way for your business to fail. So what I'm going to talk to you about really is putting that team in place, even though you certainly will lose control. A couple motivational quotes for you just from the start about teamwork and about doing things together, right? So Helen Keller, well known, said, alone we can do so little. Together we do so much. This is true not just in the philanthropic endeavors that she was talking about. It is true all the more in the business endeavors that we are all talking about. And our businesses should be philanthropic to us and to our families, right? This is an awesome opportunity for us to create a living for ourselves, for us to create a living and a livelihood for those that we love, for our families. It's a wonderful opportunity for us to create resources that might be of use to people that we care about, for causes that we care about. So even though this may not be entirely philanthropic in nature businesses, the benefits of it allow us to do things that we love and support people that we love. Here's another one, Ken Blanchard. Now, he was a business consultant, and he said, none of us is as smart, none of us, not one of us is as smart as all of us, right? That's an important thing to think about. And it's an important thing to think about as you're putting people in place. So many people put folks in place, CEOs put people in place, and they've got to be the smartest person in the room, right? I want to make sure that I am the smartest person in this room. I'll put people in place that respond to me, but I want to be the one who is the smartest. Let me tell you what, that is the wrong mindset. You want to do just the opposite. You want to put people in place who you feel like are either smarter than you, sharper than you, or in the area that you will need the service, are far sharper, far more evolved, far more developed, have far more going on, and have far more competence. That's what you want. You want to be in a room of people who know more than you do. That's true. That is true in other settings, and I will tell you, it is also true right here in business building. Finally, here are the words of an actor. So we've given you a philanthropist, we've given you a business consultant, here now an actor. Find a group of people who challenge and inspire you. Spend a lot of time with them, I should say, and it will change your life forever. Just a couple of quotes to think about the concept of teamwork, because putting a business together is nothing short of that. It is a team working together. Sure enough, from the start, you may be the engine of it. You have the idea, you're beginning to put the pieces in place. You might have consulted the Secretary of State, learned how to form your LLC. You may be consulting with different potential clients, potential vendors. It may be really all you right now, but unless you want this to be a hobby, and if that's the case, you may just want it to be a hobby. But unless you want it to be a hobby, and if in fact you want it to be a business that will grow, you've got to start thinking about putting the people in place. So let's talk about building the dream team. And I've stolen a picture from Sports Illustrated, which shows what I think to be one of the finest sports teams ever assembled. The dream team from the early 90s, the basketball dream team that played for Team USA. Here are the list of people, and we're going to go through one by one. You see, a lawyer is definitely important, and a lawyer's there. But I want you to think about all of these individuals. having these particular individuals in place. First, a close, candid, and trusted friend. Now, the first and the third word are important. They're very important. Let's go each one. A close friend, someone who is close to you, someone who you may have known for a while, but maybe not. Sometimes we spark organic relationships with people and they become close quickly, right? So it doesn't mean that it had to be a 20-year relationship, but someone who is close to you, someone you care about, someone who cares about you, someone who is candid with you. So often we get yes men, we get people who will tell us what we want to hear, and we don't intend to do that, but that just seems to happen sometimes, right? You need someone who is candid with you, who will tell you precisely what their feeling is about what you are doing, and someone who you trust. And by trust, I mean someone who you're not concerned about being jealous of you, about wanting to steal your idea. This is going to take some thought. It's not the first name that comes to mind, perhaps. And if it is, great. But this is someone you want to really think about. This is someone who has challenged you before. This is someone who you might have gotten upset with before.
Hey, Quincy, let me just interrupt you real quick.
Yeah.
I'm noticing that we're not following the slides. We still have the first main slide there.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. I'm so sorry. So let's pull up this slide. Are you able to see this slide?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. So this is the trusted, this is the team. I'm glad you stopped me there, Lorne. Thank you so much. So this is building the dream team. All right. And we're talking about now the close, candid, and trusted friend that I was just describing. Close, candid, and trusted, someone who perhaps you've got to think about a little bit, but someone who has your best interest at heart. And then next is the accountant, right? Someone who will help you with the finances, right? Someone who will help you not just with the finances, but understanding them as they're coming in and as they're going out. That's a critical thing. The next person is the financial advisor. Now, this person is different from the accountant in a sense. They will certainly help you with the business, and they will certainly help you with the finances, but the financial advisor will have the mind on the future. And that's what you also want to be thinking about. Someone who can help you as the business grows and as business develops, help you thinking about succession plans, help you think about what you will ultimately do with the business going forward, might help you think about investment ideas. This is different from the accountant. The accountant is someone who's helping you with the day in and day out, money coming in, money coming out, assets, liabilities, profit and loss sheet, all of that, which is going to be so critical to your business as it grows, as it seeks to invest, or as it seeks to be invested in, I should say, as it seeks to get loans from organizations like the SBA or from banks. They're all going to want to make sure those day-to-day documents that reflect the financial status of the company on a day-to-day basis are in order. That's your accountant. Your financial advisor will help you think about what to do with this business as things go forward, as you continue to grow, what investments you want to make, and how to prepare to leave the business when that time ultimately comes. Right? So there's an important difference between that accountant and that financial advisor. Then there's the insurance advisor. The great thing about the insurance advisor is you don't really have to chase that guy down, that guy or gal down. They will chase you down trying to get your business, right? You want to think about this insurance advisor as well. It's an important part of your business. And I will tell you that we just went through, of course, a pandemic. We went through things like PPP. It was a horrendous time for many businesses. Many businesses shuttered. Diverse businesses struggled the most. And a lot of that struggle was because insurance was not thought of on the front end. We're going to change that with this conversation today. A lawyer. Right, a lawyer obviously is key. I'll tell you exactly why a lawyer is key later on. A business mentor and coach, which is different from a close, candid, and trusted friend. This is someone who will help your business grow and develop. And then a virtual assistant, someone who can help you with the administrative support, someone who can help you with the back end, okay? All right, so let's continue on to talk about the friend, and hopefully you can see the screen now that says the friend. So much of this, my friends, is what we have discussed just prior to this graphic, which is the yes man and wanting to stay away from that individual, someone who can give you trusted advice about how your business is doing and the ideas that you have. Now, preferably this is someone who knows something about business, right? It's hard to fully appreciate what someone is telling you or the advice that they're giving you if they are not in the same path, right? So preferably, although it isn't a prerequisite, it isn't absolutely necessary, But it would be helpful if this is someone who's a trusted advisor who maybe has shared this journey before, has done this before, someone who's honest. We've talked about that. Someone who will not get jealous and has your best interest at heart. All of those are so important. When I think about that person for me, I think about my buddy Million. Million is his name. And Million and I went to law school together. And Million and I are very close. And because he's very nice and because I'm very nice, we've gotten together really quite well. But Million has no problem telling me when he thinks that, and he's also a lawyer. So when I'm telling him about a case, for example, that I may be working on, he's got no problem agreeing where he feels like there is agreement. And usually that's about 80 to 85% of what we've talked about. But then there's a good 15% where he does not agree. And when he doesn't agree, he's not bashful. He is cordial, he is pleasant, he is polite, he is respectful, and he is mindful of our relationship. But he does not get bashful about telling me that he thinks that I'm wrong. And that's the kind of friend that I think that you want to have, someone who will tell you their opinion and tell you why, give you some examples, give you some reasons. That's the kind of person that you want. And that is someone usually who has been on a journey, a similar journey as you're going on. So there's also someone who will cheer for you, someone who will cheer for you. This is a good sign that this person will not be jealous of you. This is a good sign that this is a good person to have on your team. They will cheer for you when things go well for you, not afraid to correct you in a cordial way, of course, and has a history. This is also helpful. Think about the person that you're thinking of and think, does this person, do they have a history of trusted advice and counsel? Have they told me things in the past, whether I ultimately agreed with them or did not agree with them? Have they told me things in the past that were helpful? That's your person. And that's an important person, because that's the person who you'll be on the telephone with probably after the work hours. That's the person with whom you'll be speaking after you've made a decision and you want to get their insights on it. That's the individual. And I will tell you, that's an important person. That's an important person who oftentimes goes unlisted, unmentioned in seminars about building a team, but they're an important person. The next person is very obvious, right? This is an obvious person. It's your accountant. And as we said before, I'm not talking about going out right now and hiring a CPA, right? Your business may not be there. You may not be in that position yet. Some of you may be in that position. Maybe you should have hired an accountant a while ago, right? But you may not be there yet. And if you're not there yet, we are now getting into accountants, and we'll get to financial advisors and lawyers and all those. And these people I'm talking about, not necessarily beginning to pay their bills, not necessarily bringing them in a full-on engagement in that way, but I'm talking about with these individuals, getting to know them, getting to network with them, taking them out to lunch, taking them for drinks, that sort of thing, right? Some of these people that you're going to hear about, they get paid on commission. And so there won't be as much of a struggle to get them out and to speak with them about your business. I'll just say this one more time. The biggest thing that we see is that entrepreneurs, they go into this silo. They start to feel like, I'm going to create this and craft this all my own. And sometimes that's motivated from a certain place. And that's not entirely negative doing it. Maybe people have failed you. Maybe you've not been able to rely on individuals. Maybe that is the reason for, or part of the reason for the fact that you're becoming an entrepreneur. Makes complete sense, but resist the temptation to silo your efforts. I'm going to do this all myself. Oftentimes that leads to complications, frustrations, ultimately failure. And so just be mindful of that. So again, the accountant, sometimes called the most important. I think the legal is also equally important, but the accountant can be called most important. They set up your books, basic financial systems, right? This is helpful for business. This is helpful for Uncle Sam. You want to make sure that your business is counting the dollars and cents as they come in, but you also want to make sure that your business is accounting for what is ultimately going to be owed to Uncle Sam. These are critical things. I mean, businesses struggle in these areas, and it can become a mess. It can become a mess when you're commingling, when you have not separated out a business account with your own personal account. And maybe you have separated it out, but all it takes is an inconvenience here or there, and you can find yourself, oh, just this one time, I'll put this money over here. Oh, just this one time, I'll place this over here because it's more convenient to do so. And that can lead to a commingling By commingling, I mean you're placing money now from your personal account into your business account in a way that you shouldn't be doing. And that commingling can build into a place where you say, oh, forget it. Now it's so commingled that it's too messy. I can't figure this out, right? An accountant will help you with that. These are all important things. As you know, there should be a separate account for your business and a separate account for your personal life. An accountant will help you keep that in place, right? Will help you manage your pennies, and will also advise you on the best practices for document collection when it comes to your finances. This is another thing that we saw in the PPP, right? Many businesses, many of our minority businesses desperately needed the PPP, desperately needed this funding. And what we found was a very small percentage of them actually got the funding. Now, I think there needs to be some further inquiry into why that was, because there may be some reasons that are not entirely appropriate as to why that was. However, I will tell you that a chunk of the reason is that some of these businesses did not have the appropriate documentation in place, or were not able to easily access that documentation. And that's unfortunate. Didn't have their employment records in place, in hand. Didn't have their tax records in place, in hand. This should be in 2 locations in the case there is some sort of calamity that occurs. These records should not be sitting in an inbox in an email account. They should be placed, in my opinion, they should be placed in both electronic form and in hard form in 2 different locations in case there is something that occurs to one of those locations, right? So the accountant, though, can tell you about the best practices as it relates to document collection, specifically as it relates to your own financial records, right? So this is an obvious one, right? The accountant, the person who can help you with your dollars and cents as they come in. One that may not be quite as obvious is another individual who deals with finances, but you're going to be thinking about the future with this individual. And again, this is not someone you need to run out right now and hire, but financial advisors oftentimes are looking for people, right? And they should be in and around places that support businesses. They should be, in my opinion, around chambers of commerce, around urban leagues, around those organizations that uplift small businesses. And so it should not be that difficult to find a financial advisor and for you to begin to talk with them about your business and about your business goals and your objectives and where you ultimately want to go. And then what you see yourself doing with the business in terms of any investments that you might want to make, that is the business wants to make, and any ideas you might have about when that time comes that you may want to sell the business or pass the business down to someone else. There are important things that you'll want to be mindful of and begin to put in place now to prepare yourself for that time when you pass it over to someone else, or when you do something else, sell the business, right? And some people don't have an idea of staying with the business for 40 years or 30 years. Some of you want to have your business for 5 years, sell it perhaps, and move on to something else. So you want to have a financial advisor in place, someone who can speak with you. This conversation can begin over drinks. It can begin over lunch. It doesn't have to be something where you pay that individual. You'll get a lot of nuggets from a financial advisor just beginning the conversation. So again, helping you develop longer term strategies about the business and what to do with the business, funding, lending, right? What lending opportunities might be available. Now, the banker can also help you with that. We haven't gotten to that individual yet, but that funding is also very helpful. And the pursuit of grants, the financial advisor should be for businesses, should be aware of that as well. Again, helping with the investments, financial goals of the company, and this is important succession planning and retirement, right? There are a myriad of things to think about in terms of how you want to leave your business when you do leave it, and having a financial advisor in place can help you avoid making some mistakes that others make. All right, so let's move to another individual. And Lorne, I can pause for a moment if we want to take some questions. If not, I'm happy to keep on moving along.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it was funny. You put yourself on mute and then you can't find the button, right? I'm looking at the chat here to try to determine, but I did have a question when
Yeah.
when you were going through this. On the accountant, you mentioned like timing, like when is it that you're identifying as you're putting the business together, bring it on the accountant? Is this really around the business planning process? Is it somewhat later, 3 months, 6 months in? What is typically a great time to start assembling this team per se?
Well, that's a good question, Lauren. And the point that I really want to get across is it is immediately.
Mm.
Now, but I mean it in two different ways, right? I guess I don't mean to begin to bring this person on board as paying their fee immediately. I don't think that's entirely necessary, right? I mean, certainly if you're in a position to do that, if you can do that, that would be great. But I don't think that's entirely necessary. I think what is entirely necessary is to begin to network and get to know an accountant, to take an accountant to lunch, take them for drinks, to do whatever is suitable for you in terms of getting to know an accountant. There are organizations of accountants. There are accountants in church. There are accountants all over. I guess what I'm saying is, let's begin that conversation. Your business is going to grow, it's going to develop, and that accountant will stand to benefit from that. But as your business grows and develops, you will stand to benefit from that. So I guess there are two entry points. One entry point is immediately, I think, in terms of networking and getting to know. There will be things that accountant can share with you fairly immediately. If we're talking then about when is the appropriate time to begin to pay for an accountant, right? I think that probably becomes at some point 6 months perhaps after you begin generating revenue is what I would say, right? Because you're going to want to fairly early on begin to establish assets, liabilities, the sheets that tell you the money that's coming in versus the money that's going out. That'll be a tremendous frustration to you if you believe I did this and this and this, and there should be this money here, and yet there isn't because I'm not tracking my expenses with my revenue, right? So I think as a business grows, there are a couple points. There's the idea point. There is the action point. The action point is formation, LLC, getting things together. There can be a lull sometime between that point and the next point. But I think the next point is taking the idea after having formed the business, and sometimes that form the business part gets left out, but taking the idea and then moving on that idea and beginning the revenue generation part about it, right? So let me start seeing if these cookies will actually sell. Let me see if these candles actually are a good idea and if they can sell. Let me see if doing this Airbnb thing that I have, this rental arbitrage where I agree with the landlord to have the right to sublet his apartments, his units. Let me see if that's a good idea. Let me try that for a month, right? So there's the revenue generation part of this. And there will come a point where you become fairly content that there's something here. I'm doing this service or I'm creating this product and I'm generating some revenue. That could be very small, but maybe it's very small because you don't quite have the capacity yet, right? I've only got this one oven. But I can tell that when I take these to the church or when I take this to my friends, right, it sells. So now you're thinking, I need to get some more tools in here so that I can get the capacity. That is about the point, I think, where you've gotten past the stage of believing this can generate revenue to now you're content. This can generate revenue, and I'm seeing the revenue to be beginning to come in. I think really that is the time to begin to engage in terms of now, not that first entry point, but that second entry point where you'd be willing to pay. And like anything, you've got to do that carefully. You've got to make sure that the fees are not a surprise to you, that there are no expectations. And you've got to make sure that you are asking for, things like, maybe for you, it's a matter of getting some advice on QuickBooks or on a common tool that accountants use and being shown how to use that common tool. And then you can sort of take it from there, right? So that's about the stage, Lauren, that I would say when it comes to an accountant. It is, in my mind, two. One is right from the beginning, networking, getting to know folks who are all of these characteristics that I'm mentioning. But then that second stage is after you become content, that revenue generation is real.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Sure. Yeah, and you guys let me know if you've got any other questions. I'll move along, Lauren, to the insurance guy or girl. Now, this is one, Lauren, that I don't see frequently on these lists of your dream team, of the people to put in place, but I really think this should be for a couple of reasons. Number one, the insurance guy is not someone you've got to track down. Oftentimes the insurance guy is looking for you. I mean, this might even be annoying for you, quite frankly, because the insurance guy normally is looking for business so frequently. But this is someone that you want to track down for business. So we're not necessarily talking about the house, the car, the home, those sorts of things. We're talking about for your business. And there are insurance providers who can talk to you about your business and about what insurance makes sense for your business. This is not an area of specialty for me, except that I'm aware of some tools, some insurance devices that can be very helpful for businesses. And when you think about what happened during our last COVID session, we know that businesses shuttered. And I will tell you that many of those businesses had no protection beyond what was in the bank account. And when the business began to suffer because we couldn't get together, that bank account began to suffer as well. And there was nothing else that they could turn to. So the insurance person will help you with that with a couple of things. First, I call it insurance hygiene check. This person will take a look at what you've got, right? And don't be afraid if you've got nothing, right? That's okay. But this insurance provider will take a look at what you've got. We call it a hygiene check, making sure you've got the appropriate things in place. And if you don't have all of the things, or if you only have some of the things, this insurance guy or gal can help you with a plan about what you should have in place. And even if you decide not to get it all in place, at least you'll be aware as a business begins to grow what insurance tools you need to have, what necessary insurance you need to have, what adequate coverage. And that's especially important for smaller home-based businesses. But more importantly, this insurance person can answer several questions for you. And so I would pose it just like this. I would say, well, what happens? Is there a tool that would be able to help me if an interruption occurs in the selling of my business? If an interruption occurs that perhaps is beyond my knowledge or control. The pandemic is such an easy example because it just happened and it really fits the bill here. You know, something like that. If some event occurred, a complete act of God that stopped me from being able to fill orders, and I know that I've got the potential for many, many orders, but this act of God occurs, is there an insurance tool that I can use? Is there something that I can use to cover my equipment that I have? Maybe my equipment is essential for my business. Equipment, of course, is going to be important for anybody's business. For a lot of people, it's just going to be a computer, but for other people, it might be actual hard equipment. If you have a service where you mow lawns, right, and you begin to develop a fleet, and you now have, I don't know, 10 small tractors that you're using to go all over the city of Chattanooga and mow lawns, you're going to want to consider the equipment that you have and getting coverage on that. If you use primarily a computer, you've got to be concerned about breaches. These seemingly are happening more and more often where important data is breached. And this is data that's important to the business, right? So if there's a data breach, what insurance do I need? What if my revenues sag, right? Is there insurance that will help me if there's been some kind of interruption and it's led to less money for my business, right? So these are just a couple of questions that I think are important. What happens if an interruption occurs? What happens if my equipment, if something happens to my equipment, is there a way to get that covered? What happens if there is a data breach? My business depends on data. It depends on the computer. What happens if something happens there and my things get breached? What if my revenues begin to dip significantly? Is there any help there? So the insurance guy or girl, I think, is highly important. Now, my favorite category, of course, is the lawyers, because I think the lawyers are highly important, and I think lawyers are oftentimes misunderstood. I've got myself here as well as one of my good friends right there in Chattanooga. This is Mike Alston. He runs our Chattanooga office, managing partner. He's a fantastic guy. I've really grown to really respect and adore Mike, to be quite honest with you, for counsel that he's given me both professionally and personally. And so I've got his face up there with mine because we are the lawyers, and I want you to think about what lawyers can provide. Again, lawyers oftentimes, I think, get a bad rap. And that's unfortunate because there is a great deal that we can provide, I think, that can be helpful. So let me share with you some of those things. First of all, we can advise on legal aspects. Now, Lorne asked a good question about accountants, and I think the same question is appropriate here, and that is, when is the time to consider hiring a lawyer? And as we go through this, I'm going to arrive at an answer that I think is important in terms of when I think is important. But keep in mind, here again, 2 entry points. I think it's highly critical to begin to network with lawyers. Folks, we don't bite. We went to school for 3 years. We got a law degree. We've got a bar card. Most of us are pretty intelligent, pretty smart, but we don't bite. We love company. We love speaking with people. We love sharing our experiences with people, right? And if we can't talk about something, we'll tell you we can't talk about something, but there's no reason to be shy about a lawyer. We can be great company. So the point is, come to us, speak with us. We're at the Chamber of Commerce. We're at, as I mentioned before, the Urban League. We're at the United Way. We're at the organizations that you might be a part of, either in your business building endeavors or in your philanthropic endeavors or in your church endeavors. We're there. Lawyers are there. And I certainly don't want you to be afraid of a lawyer. Come up to them. We can advise on legal aspects of your business, about all the legal aspects of your business. A small business is going to be concerned about a couple of things. Number one, you'll be concerned about making sure the company is legit, right? The company is formed as it should be. You've gotten some advice on how the taxes are going to affect you. You're an LLC or you're an S Corp or you're a C Corp. Likely you're an LLC, but we don't, as they say, worship on the altar of the LLC. We make a choice about which of these entities makes sense. And there's a tax implication for which or each of these businesses. So you want to know about that. That's one of the things that lawyers can be extremely helpful toward the beginning, making sure that the business is up, it's registered, it's formed, it is permitted to operate, that its licensure and whatever fees are necessary are in place and that you're aware of them, and that the governing documents, and this is an area where the PPP really harmed folks, or I should say really was ineffective for small businesses, and that was with these governing documents. It's not sufficient to just say I've got an LLC. It's not sufficient to point me to the Secretary of State's webpage that shows that you have your LLC formed. No, you've got to be able to show that you have the documents that would govern that LLC, which typically are going to be something like a partnership agreement or an operating agreement, right? And those are not necessarily long, drawn out, complicated documents. Sometimes, in fact, they're very simple to put together, but you're going to want to make sure all of that is as it should be. So there's that aspect. There is also contracts. Contracts are important. Putting together a couple, 1 or 2 contracts, template drafts that will help you with your vendors or maybe your clients. Maybe you're in a business where a client contract isn't entirely important, but perhaps you sell cookies, right? And you might think, well, I don't necessarily need a client contract there, but you might have vendor contracts, maybe supplier contracts that you have. You want to make sure, and we want to make sure that those contracts reflect your interests. We want to make sure that you can rely upon that contract. I know it's got provisions inside of it that are supportive of my interests. You want to be able to go to sleep on that. So the contract space, I would say after governing documents, after your contracts, I would say your intellectual property. Some folks think I can do that in the sweet by and by. I can protect my name. I can protect my logo, my trademarks. I can protect my copyrighted materials in the sweet by and by. Let me dispel you of that notion. Don't think about doing this in the sweet by and by. Do it now. Do it soon, I should say. I'm not one to believe that you got to rush and do everything, but I would say that I think that is a piece of incorrect advice, that you can do this in the sweet by and by. We have seen with the small businesses that we help and support, we have seen them have to rebrand because they got a name that was super creative. They didn't do a name search. They didn't do anything else. And what happened was after them, someone else somewhere else got the same name. But they applied all the corrective protections to that name in terms of trademarks and logos and such. And this company who we are talking with did not. And what happens there is the company that we're talking with now has to think about, oh my gosh, I've got to think about changing my name now because I have every intent to be national. But I can't go national because this place in California has this name trademarked, registered with the USPTO, US Patent and Trade Office, right? So that's important to think about. You don't want to have to do a rebrand. Another reason why the intellectual property, I think, is just as important or close to being as important as the governing documents and the contracts is because you may decide one day that you want to grow and expand a different way than most folks think about it. You may decide one day, I want to grow and expand not by getting new real estate, getting new bricks and mortars. You may decide, I want to grow and expand, not by bringing in new employees and having to deal with employees and all the burden that comes with them. Employees are fantastic, but there is a burden that is attached with them. You may say, I don't want to grow that way. I want to grow simply by leveraging those trademarks that I have, leveraging that logo that I have. I want to grow by licensing and allowing the use of this intellectual property that I have. I want to grow in the way that McDonald's grew, right? I want to grow in the way that a franchisor or franchisee, I'm sorry, may come to me and say, I want to use your tools and I want to grow my business with your name. You will not be able to, so this is called franchising or licensing of your trademarks. You will not be able to grow in that way if you did not.
Quincy, I don't mean to interrupt, but I just want to be time sensitive. And I also too want to make sure we have enough time to hear a couple of questions.
Oh, sure.
So I just want to make you aware about that, just based on with time.
Okay, no problem at all. And I will, and this is good. I'm glad you did that, Lorne. I just want to make those 2 points though, Lorne, about the intellectual property part about this and how that's one that lawyers can really help on pretty early on, and that can be done fairly inexpensively if we're talking about trademark registrations and copyright, those sorts of things. You want to think about that. You don't want to have to rebrand. You don't want someone to have the name or already have the tool that you're trying to protect. And then secondly, you want to make sure that you preserve your right to grow through franchising if you decide to do that. You may not decide to do that, but if you decide to do that by franchising or by licensing, because let me tell you how that money looks. That money looks like hitting the mailbox. It's just in the mailbox. That royalty check that you get or that licensing fee that you get, it hits the mailbox, and it's a nice way to grow, expand, and to make money. So those are some of the areas that we specifically see lawyers being helpful on with respect to small businesses. Assistance with initial legal documents, strong form contracts like we were just talking about, the intellectual property. But then there's also the stuff like the regulation compliance, making sure that the business is properly within current regulations and state and federal statutes if you're in that sort of business. Also, if you're talking about expansion planning, if you're talking about expanding your business, certainly you want to think about the other folks who we've talked about who can help you with expansion planning, like that financial advisor that we talked about. But the legal person is also important as you begin thinking about expanding out of Tennessee and maybe into Georgia, perhaps into Alabama, right? Who do I need to talk with about making sure that what I'm doing is compliant with those laws? That's as you continue to grow. So in my mind, there is no question that the lawyers can be very helpful. The business coach is also helpful. Now this one, I think that we've mentioned a number that I think are critical, but I do think the business coach is helpful. While not critical, I think the business coach can be helpful, and I think you should lean on a business coach as you deem necessary. If there's some strategies that are not quite working for you, I would find a business coach for short term who can give you some strategies. A business coach who has some experience working in the very industry, in the very business, hopefully, that you are working on. I think in that sense, they can be helpful. They can become a trusted mentor for business decisions. They can have a critical role. You want to get someone obviously that you trust. And by trust, really what I mean is someone who has done this before, been down this road. I don't think it's as helpful to get a business coach who's simply sort of a general business coach who works with a myriad of different businesses. I think that can be helpful so long as that myriad of different businesses also includes the business that you're working in, right? I think that's so helpful when someone who has been there to watch certain businesses stub their toe can advise you on those stubbed toes so that you can avoid it. So that's the sounding board effect, and also can help you for corporate strategies for growth, employment. When do I employ, right? A business coach can help you think about when is the appropriate time to employ. This is a milestone moment for businesses, and you've got to look beyond just I've got more revenue. You've got to look at more revenue, more capacity. You sort of have to do a study yourself of your business to get comfortable there, gaining clients, right? A business coach can help you there. A business coach really, I think, is next level stuff. So I've gotten to a point of revenue generation that I'm happy with, but I need some strategies to help me get to the next level, right? And much more that business coach can provide. And winding down now, I'll just tell you one final person who I think is important and can be helpful, and that is an assistant. This is oftentimes the first person that we see employed or brought in as an independent contractor. The virtual assistant, that is someone who doesn't necessarily have to be right by you, doesn't have to be in an office space with you. In fact, for a lot of small businesses, they're not seeing a bricks and mortar just yet. They're in a situation where there isn't a bricks and mortar, and so for them, it would be someone who is virtually there. So just like this, you'd meet with your virtual assistant over Zoom or over Teams, right? And so, but this person can be extremely helpful to you by getting some of that admin stuff done, right? This is oftentimes what we call a bootstrapper's dream, someone who's using their own funds to support their business and has a myriad of things they need to do. They like having someone who can help them with the tech, with different chores and tasks, with things like scheduling, with social media. So I'd advise getting someone who has some knowledge about social media. That we are seeing is becoming a critical tool for the advancement of small businesses, and a cheap one. And who can help you with vendors, getting vendors in. This can be an intern, this can be a part-time person. Your local college can oftentimes have a perfect virtual assistant for you. So that's one to think about as well. Again, the business coach, I think, is probably the one of this group that I would say maybe not someone to get immediately, because I think they can really help you when you're already comfortable that what you're doing is generating revenue and you're trying to kind of get to the next level. So Lorne, I'll just conclude one more time. A candid, trusted friend, I think is critical. Someone who you trust, someone who has been down this journey before, someone has your best interest at heart. An accountant, for obvious reasons, can help you keep track of the pennies and the dollars as they come in and go out. A financial advisor, someone who can think about the future in terms of finances. An insurance advisor, someone who can help you as you start thinking about what happens if. A lawyer, obviously, a lawyer is critical in the area of helping businesses grow and develop. A business mentor and coach, although I don't think is necessary at the start, certainly can help you as you begin to grow. And you will find, I think, also assistance and help with the virtual assistant. So that is the dream team as I see it.
That's awesome. Quincy, I can't thank you enough. This is awesome. It's a lot to take in, some great content, but it's exciting work. I just want to make a couple of minutes for questions. There was one, I had two myself, but I'm gonna lead with this. There was a question, how do you trademark was one of the questions that was.
When you think about trademark, you think about a couple of things. The first thing you think about is the trademark is really determined by use. So if you are using your business, if you're selling the thing or providing the service, it may well be that you're already qualifying for a trademark by way of use in the geographical area where you live, right? But that isn't what we work on as lawyers. What we work on as lawyers really is trying to register that trademark. And that's something you'll need a lawyer to help you with, quite frankly. And that's a matter of an application to a federal government, the U.S. Patent and Trade Office. That is how you register. Maybe you all have seen beside a logo before the T and the M. And maybe you've also seen the R, right? We're looking for the R. Many of you can already use the T and the M because you're in a geographical area, you've been servicing that community, you've been selling, you've been providing the service, you're already TM-able. But the R is what you obtain, and that's the real protection. And that is, I think, in obtaining the assistance of a lawyer. Again, this doesn't have to be a terribly expensive thing, and filing an application with the U.S. Patent and Trade Office.
Awesome. Again, Quincy, I just want to thank you for the time. There were one or two other questions, but I think that given our time, is trying to be responsible to focus on and responsive. But just want to say that, one, I have enjoyed this partnership. It's really done a lot for those of us who are trying to identify ways in which to help small business in Chattanooga by extension of services for the Chamber. And then also the understanding that an organization like Husch Blackwell, who has sites all over the country, has initiated such a project, really giving service, pro bono service to assist folks in thinking through and thinking about how best to get off on the right foot on these businesses. Just by way of sort of getting transitioning to next steps or updates, with regards to the Chamber and the work that we're engaged in at the Chamber, we're in the process of looking at launching a pilot that looks at procurement. So I want folks to, on this call, to be aware of that. And then also our DEI forum is going to take place, and that's going to be on the 30th of this month. That's going to be at 10 a.m. Stay focused on that update. And that's the person who's going to lead that is going to be Tracy Wood here locally. Now, I just want to take a moment again just to thank Quincy for this very powerful information. I know this is going to generate a lot of information, a lot of questions. If folks have additional questions of myself, follow up for Quincy, I will definitely forward that information on. I can be reached at lsteedley@ChattanoogaChamber.com. Feel free to reach out to me. I'll get that information over to Quincy. And again, before we leave, I just want to say thanks again, Quincy, for the time. Thank you again for the partnership. And I just want to wish everyone a great Thursday afternoon. Take care. Or morning, but still left of it. All right, take care. All right, bye.